It did not rise like a monument, nor shine like a city of empire. Bethlehem felt older than its size suggested, a settlement woven into the land itself, as though the hills had lifted pieces of limestone to form walls, courtyards, and narrow passages. And yet, places like this vanished all the time, erased by drought, taxation, war, or the slow, grinding weight of empire. So the real question isn't why Bethlehem became famous, it's why it survived. 2,000 years ago, Bethlehem was a village defined not by grandeur but by necessity. Nothing here was built to impress. Everything here was built to function. Its homes, terraces, and cisterns shared the same stone, pale gold-gray limestone quarried from the ridges surrounding the town. Seen from a distance, the village almost dissolved into the hillside, a geometry of earth and habitation, fused into one, shaped by repetition, labor, and restraint. Morning in Bethlehem began before the light. The scrape of metal tools against soil echoed between terraces. Ceramic jars clattered against stone cisterns as water was drawn for the day. Shepherds guided flocks toward the slopes, their movements practiced, economical. Olive presses groaned in courtyards, where early winter harvests were crushed under steady weight. This was not a world of spectacle. It was a world of rhythm, and that rhythm followed a rule. In a landscape like this, nothing was guaranteed. Not water, not harvest, not shelter. The terraced fields surrounding Bethlehem were feats of patience. Each wall, stacked stone by stone, held back the red soil of Ephrathah. Without them, the slopes would slide away. With them, the land became a working staircase. Wheat and barley in cooler months, olives and grapes as the heat returned, grazing paths cut deliberately through the hills for sheep and goats. But every wall held only as long as it was maintained. Every harvest depended on balance and attention. The air carried the scent of pressed olives, dry grasses, and warm livestock. A sensory fingerprint that has drifted across millennia, unchanged. Stone, soil, and labor tell us more than routine ever could. Bethlehem mattered long before empire arrived, not because of size or power, but because it worked. Because it sustained itself where failure was common. To walk into Bethlehem was to move through narrow stone corridors. Some passages barely allowed two people to pass. Homes clustered tightly, forming shared courtyards and workspaces. The village was compact by design, conserving heat, sharing effort, protecting itself from exposure and loss. Within these homes, architecture followed a simple logic. Many houses were two-tiered, cut partially into bedrock. Above, family space, warm, communal, lit by clay lamps scented with baking bread and smoke. Below, the lower chamber, cooler, darker, shaped for use. These lower rooms sheltered animals at night. Feeding troughs were carved directly into the floor. Tools hung within reach. Storage jars lined the walls, sealed carefully against damp and pests. The space was never meant for comfort. But in moments of pressure, it became essential. Practicality dictated design. Stone dictated form. Need dictated everything else. This is where the familiar image begins to fracture. The Bethlehem many imagine is quiet, empty, a backdrop. The Bethlehem archaeology reveals is a working settlement under constant strain, a hillside system engineered to absorb scarcity, where the boundary between home, labor, and shelter was thin and flexible. That strain became unmistakable as empire pressed closer. Travelers approaching from the north encountered Roman patrols along the road between Jerusalem and Hebron. Administrative posts tracked movement. Taxes were enforced. Armor clattered across the hills. Empire did not need to burn villages like this. It only needed to stretch them. Then came the census. not a gentle act of record-keeping, but a violent disruption of a fragile system. It displaced families. It fractured routines. It consumed every available space. Movement was no longer optional. Shelter was no longer private. Streets filled. Voices overlapped. Animals were tethered wherever stone allowed. Courtyards overflowed. Upper rooms vanished first. The system bent, but it did not fail. Shelter was improvised. Rooftops, courtyards, lower chambers, wherever warmth and cover could be found. And that is where archaeology and memory finally align. Beneath the crowded surface lay Bethlehem's most revealing feature, its underground world. Caves honeycombed the village and surrounding hills, some natural, others deliberately shaped. Many older than Roman rule itself, they served as burial spaces, storage rooms, workshops, an emergency shelter when pressure peaked, dry, stable, temperature controlled. In a land where survival hinged on managing extremes, these spaces were not curiosities. They were infrastructure. A second Bethlehem existed beneath the first. This underground layer reframes everything. A stone feeding trough no longer reads as symbolism. It belongs exactly where archaeology places it, in lower chambers, in adapted caves, within a vertical system built to endure stress. Above ground and below, a single ecosystem of survival. Bethlehem's economy was modest, but resilient. Olive presses carved into bedrock still scar the slopes. Cisterns gathered rain with mathematical precision. Grinding floors and storage pits reveal careful planning across seasons. Pottery fragments, mostly local, some imported, show connection without dependence. Grain, olives, sheep, these sustained the village for generations. Roman administration left marks, seals, styles, taxes, but it did not redefine the place. Bethlehem persisted because it functioned. Archaeology rebuilds walls and floors. Memory does something else entirely. Meaning settles slowly, through repetition, through story, through the way a place survives long enough to be noticed. In the first century, Bethlehem held no monuments, no inscriptions, no architecture meant to command attention, and yet, it remained. If we could stand there 2,000 years ago, we would see no legend forming, only daily life, shaped by seasons, stone, and restraint. Winter winds over terraces, smoke rising from hearths, children walking familiar paths to cisterns, shepherds crossing ridgelines at dusk, Aramaic voices echoing softly through stone corridors. This was a world governed not by ambition, but by continuity. Stone remembers longer than parchment. Land absorbs memory until it becomes inseparable from story. Bethlehem endured not through might, but through quiet resilience, a village of earth and stone that refused to disappear. As the winter sun slipped across the hills, shadows stretched along the terraces. Fires glowed beneath stone roofs, and for a moment time seemed to pause, held between land and memory. This was Bethlehem as it truly was. Not a place of grandeur, but a place that lasted. If you enjoyed exploring this world, consider subscribing, and let curiosity guide you to the next chapter. The journey continues.